the main priority today is to really discuss 6 personal perspectives. And we'd like to have this class with you to give you insight of how we did it in our lives. I think that do you think that would be beneficial for you today? Thumbs up. Yes. All right, George.
So we're covering 6 personal perspectives. We got the course docs here for the 6 personal perspectives from the bold course. And really, when we go through, the main thing to cover here is the 6 personal perspectives. And so we figured we would talk about the actual 6 personal perspectives and how we've been able to use them in our business. And so we thought that would be a nice touch. If anyone has questions as we go through it, then definitely throw the questions in the chat, and then we can answer them as we see them. But 6 personal perspectives, this is huge. This is a Kellerism. This is straight like KW. And in my opinion, I always feel like the 6 personal perspectives, this is what it takes to be successful in business, but also in life. So all these 6 personal perspectives, you can apply them universally. It doesn't have to be just a business, but you definitely want to be working to master all 6 of these in your life. So the first one is commit to self. So the first one is commit to self-mastery. And that, I mean, if you're in real estate, if you're new, or whether you're seasoned or been in the business a long time, no matter what, you should be constantly working to master your craft, which is real estate, right? So when we started in the business, it was like an obsession, and it still is, always constantly learning and constantly reading books. You know, in my opinion, for any new agent, my suggestion is always reading the Millionaire Real Estate series. So if you haven't read the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Flip, Hold, Shift, The One Thing, all these books are towards committing to self-mastery. And then some other examples are like, you know, when you're starting out, and even if you've been in the business, every time you meet with a client, a potential client, every time you meet with a buyer, especially when you lose business, you always want to be reflecting and asking yourself, why did I lose it? What could I have done better? So it's like a constant improvement, a constant cycle of improving your skills. And that's all part of self-mastery, right?
Yes. And actually, we had a meeting yesterday, and our team is constantly working towards improving themselves, not only for their own business growth, but self-growth and for family growth, right? So I'll speak shortly about one of our team members, Sonia. Her daughter had just joined Keller Williams in Colombia, and now she's discovered something new because now her family is involved and they're very close. And through her efforts of having an accountability partner with her family member, she's discovered something different. And she realized that what we do on a day-to-day is very repetitive. So really what you need to do towards self-mastery, some of this stuff can be considered boring because you're doing the same thing over and over every day, but it actually leads to it leads to greatness. So the more that you commit time to doing the same thing, obviously you'll become an expert at it, right? There's a saying that if you put in 10,000 hours in anything you do, you become an expert in that, right? Do you see thumbs up in there? Yeah, Rosa, I see you, girl.
So I mean, I guess we can talk about, since we're talking about real estate, we can talk about the different things that you need to be mastering. And so as an agent, I think you have to master just everything related to real estate, all the different aspects, which is like the investing side, the end user side, the developer side, right? So you want to be learning about zoning, land use, all kind of everything related to real estate, especially in New York City with Department of Buildings, HPD, ECB. You want to learn about everything related to the local real estate market and the local real estate industry. That's part of your evolution towards self-mastery. And then you also want to be mastering your skills. So how you talk to people, your conversion rates, how you track your contacts, how you track your leads, your communication skills. So all that stuff is part of mastering your role as an agent and as a business owner, right? So that would be like your commitment to self-mastery. That's what I always think as an agent is, how do you master real estate? And to master real estate, you have to be constantly engulfed in it, constantly reading articles, reading books, running comps daily. You should be doing comps constantly so you can master pricing and master valuations. So you guys get the idea. This is like, you have to make it a commitment to master what you do, which is real estate.
Now, hearing George talk, I feel very dizzy because, as we all know, there's so much to learn in any brand. Hey, Gonzalo. So as I feel very dizzy hearing George, because being in this business this long, to give you some perspective, George started as an MCA in 2008. We both got our license in 2010, but I began real estate sales in 2010. And so looking back on how long it took us to where we are today, it's a lot of work. And so all those things that George has just explained to you, it takes time. So one key here is you have to be patient with yourself. You have to be patient and know that you cannot learn all of this overnight. It takes time. That is extremely important in this business, because otherwise you can drive yourself crazy and become dizzy every day. So this actually leads into the second of the 6 personal perspectives, which is committing to the 80-20 principle, right? 20% of your results lead to the actual business, right? So in order to do all these things that George explained to you in a minute of a breath, you really have to make sure that you are time blocking what your day, what your hour looks like, what your day looks like, what your week looks like, and what your whole year looks like. And that's an example of how to do that is using a tool called the 411. We've actually used this tool since 2010, being in this business since 2010. And it's amazing what this one piece of paper can do for you in your business. And so if you don't know about it, look it up on what the 411 is. And if you don't have it, you can easily reach us or the office and we can give you a template. This is something that allows you to really look into what's important for you, whether it's business or personal, and really track what it is that you want to do for this year in your business. So as we all know, everybody started somewhere. We started with absolutely no real estate backing, any education. We started from the ground up, right? And so you have to start somewhere. So be realistic with your time, whether you're a solo agent, if you're a married couple like we are doing it, if you're on a team, etc. But be realistic with the time that you have and plan it out properly.
Yeah, and also, I mean, identifying the 20% activities, that's key. Because in this business, there is so much to do, especially if you're a solo agent. There's a million things that you have to do every day. But the key is, how do you identify what the big rocks are? How do you identify what the top 20% is, which will give you 80% of your desired outcome, right? So commitment to the 80-20 principle, in my opinion, is where you have to be okay with things not getting done. So from right from the beginning, when I learned the Pareto principle, right away, I knew that what really matters is this, and I'm going to get that done. And whatever else doesn't get done just has to get done whenever it can be. You have to be okay with that. And that's what's going to happen. If you do follow the 80-20 principle, then you're going to wake up every day. You're going to look at your laundry list of items that you have to do, and you're going to pick the 2 or 3 that are the most important for you to accomplish that day. You get those things done, and whatever else can get done, you do. But if you can't get it done, you just have to deal with it. You have to be okay with that, because the way you get good results in this business and even in life is focusing on what's important. Focus on what is the top priority that will lead to the outcome that you're looking for, right?
So can we give them some perspective here, right? So I'll give you perspective as I recall way back when I was a brand new agent learning about this tool, right? So my first 1 to 2, let's just start with the first year in the business. And this can be applied to anyone that's on this call right now, whether you're brand new or you're even within a team, right? So for example, the first year on this business, starting brand new with absolutely no experience, I knew that there's only realistically, if you're really grinding 9 to 10 hours in one day, if you're grinding, meaning you're waking up and starting at, let's say you're at the office by 9 and you're finished at 9 at night, something like that. Just, you have nothing else on your priority, have no kids, all these kinds of things, right? So within one day of a time frame, what I made sure to do was at least commit to 3. This is my beginning of the career. No business, no backing of any sort. We knew nobody in Queens, okay? 3 hours of lead generating 5 days a week. I committed to that, and I tracked my numbers. Back then, it would take me 100 dials to get 10 conversations to meet 1 appointment. All right. So that's an example, right? But 3 hours a day was one of the things that I did on a day-to-day. made sure to have lunch and minimum half an hour, right? Then I committed to 1 hour of KW, which back in the day was KW Connect, where you had like all the classes that were available there. So I committed to doing 1 hour of one class per day, 5 days a week. The other hour I committed to anything relating to systems, because before we even knew we wanted a team, I am very forgetful. So I wrote everything down on paper, but I knew that that notebook would get filled up. So I had to commit to implementing 1 hour of documenting what I'm doing on a day-to-day. And the other hour was committing to marketing, whatever in my arena of being able to understand marketing. And the other time of the day would be committed to, following up on emails, etc. So this gives you some perspective. Now today, being on a team as a listing agent, my top priorities on a day-to-day is minimum 2 hours of lead generating, because I have the business going, right? So at minimum 2 hours of lead generating leads me to being able to schedule 2 appointments, listing appointments per week. Aside of that, of course, I have to eat because I'm hungry like everybody else. So you have to make sure you nourish yourself. And then the other percentage of time is devoted between scheduling my appointments, following up on emails, preparing for new listings that are coming on the market. So time is very valuable. It has to be organized, because if I have listings coming up tomorrow, I have to make sure to time block the day before. So everything is about time blocking and making sure you're realistic to following that schedule. Otherwise, you will not produce the results. Does anybody have questions on that? Thumbs up. All right, everybody here there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So the 80-20 principle, I mean, it's a discipline, and it's not that easy to follow. It's easy to get mixed up in the 80%. So the habit that you have to build is being good at staying in your 20%. And that just comes with time. It comes with using the 411. So if you haven't created a 411 yet, or if you're not using a 411, you really need to use a 411. And we've been using it since we started in the business. So we use this every single year. Every Monday, we go over it with the team. Every Friday, we go over it with the team. So the 411 is key. And what it does is it identifies the big rocks, which are your top 20%. So not all activities are equal, right? So you have to identify, when you create your 411, it's really at most like 5 or 6 items. Those are your big goals. And then you break those down into monthly goals and weekly activities. But your to-do list might be 20 items long, but your have-to list is your 411. And that's what you have to knock out first. Every day you have to have that habit of committing to that 80-20 principle, and constantly every day identifying, of all the things that you have to do, what are my 20%, my top 20% activities, right?
Can I add to this before we move on? Is that okay? Thumbs up. Everybody in there? Okay. Aside of business, you already know that life does not revolve about only work and no play.
Mhm.
You also have a personal life, right? So the 411 also balances life between business activities and what your goals are for that year, but also your personal and absolute most important things that by the end of the year, when you look at your 411, you look at it, you accomplish it, you had a great year. So for example, on my 411, I have to make sure in my life that I have to bang out all of my doctor visits throughout the year. Is that top 20%? You're absolutely right. And that goes for a lot of people on this call. You have to make sure you bang out whatever your doctor's appointments are, eye, ear, nose, throat, whatever is involved there. Secondly, family is obviously very important to me. So I have to make sure at minimum, I can see my family at least once a month, because they don't even live nearby here. So at once a month, if I can visit them and make the time, then it's perfect, right? My best friend, who actually just texted me, she's part of my important life as well, because you have to have at least one good best friend. And so at least seeing her once a month, having that quality time is also very important for me. So that also is on my 411. Last but not least, working out is also on our 411. Our health is very important. I know Anna's on this call, our team member. We're constantly on a week-to-week having conversations about health, making sure we maintain our mental health, our physical health, etc. So we have our goal. My goal is to have at least 4 times of morning exercises, even if it's just 15 minutes to do something. Because as you get older, you know that health is very important, and you have to maintain all of these things. So with that said, what does that tell you? Balance between business and personal. If you're able to combine all these things and identify the top 20%, you'll be absolutely sure about by the end of the year, you're going to be living that good life. Does that all make sense to everybody? Thumbs up, thumbs up. Let me see those thumbs in the group chat here. All right, JXR, I don't know who you are, but you're in there.
So,
Lourdes, yes.
So 80-20 principle, guys. And if you need a spreadsheet, like a template, we have one that we use. If you want to get an idea, like, so the way that we do it is that our whole team, everyone submits their 411 to the team every Monday morning. And then on Friday, we go over it. So we usually, you can meet with somebody. And that's one of the other 6 personal perspectives is reporting and being accountable. But you create your 411 either on Sunday or Monday, so the beginning of the week. And then on Friday, you want to go over it, check in with somebody, just have an accountability buddy, but go over your 411 and revisit it towards the end of the week just to see how you're doing. So the 80-20 principle, the way you commit to that, in our opinion, is commit to using the 411. I don't really know any other tool aside from the 135 that really makes you hone in on your top 20%. So make sure you do that. The third personal perspective is moving from E to P. And anyone in KW, you know this, but if you just joined or you're newer, you might not know it, but moving from E to P means moving from entrepreneurial to purposeful. And this is like KW lingo, but you have to learn this stuff. Moving from entrepreneurial means moving from just doing it the way you do it. And we all know people who just wing it and they wake up and they're reactive. So whatever's happening to them, they're just going by whatever is happening to them. And they're not actually creating their day and purposefully creating what they're doing that day. So being entrepreneurial means just doing it however you do it, winging it. There's no strategy, there's no method to it, there's no systems. So that's being entrepreneurial. And when you go to being purposeful, that's like using the 411, planning out your day, exercising, praying, meditating, your whole millionaire energy plan. That's all part of being purposeful with your entire day so that you're not reactive and you can actually be the one that's controlling the outcome of your day.
And I'd like to add that being purposeful is not easy because he just described me this morning. So things are getting thrown at me and I'm just reacting. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, I have my day planned out from the night before and I'm not following my schedule. So what happens? You get less done. That's just a reality. So, we're not robots here. We're speaking on what works and what can happen when you kind of fall off. But if you stick to remaining purposeful and having that mindset on a day-to-day, you'd be surprised about how your life will change.
Mm-hmm. And from an agent standpoint, I mean, moving from E to P as a KW agent is really back to using that 411 and implementing systems. So this is where systems come into play. Whenever you get a listing, whenever you talk to someone, there should be a checklist that you follow, how you process them into your CRM, how you add them on whatever action plans you're going to add them to. Every time you get a new listing, there should be a checklist that you follow. Every time you have a new contract, a checklist that you follow. So this is like how doctors' offices work. That's how your business should operate. And that's the way that we like to operate, is where everything has a system. And that's being purposeful, right? So it's not like you get a listing and then you're just figuring everything out. You have to get the listing and you have a system and a checklist in place of what gets done every time new business comes in to the business, right? So those are some things that you could do to be more purposeful, but you have to really look at it as like not winging things. You have to have a method to your madness. Even though everything's crazy, you have to have systems and tools to make sure that your business is consistent, right?
Now, remember, when you're a real estate agent, I mean, we wear a cape on a day-to-day because we play so many roles. We're the cook, we're the cleaner, we're the CFO, we're the CEO, we're the psychologist, we're the clean out company. We're all these kinds of things in one person. So going back to the idea of systems and being purposeful, you have to already know, even if you decide to stay as a solo agent versus joining a team or building your team, etc., you still need something to help you with your business. And those systems are essentially like your administrative assistant through papers, right? So you have to make sure that you're documenting what you're doing. So that way you don't have to think about it later because it's already documented. So that's just a key here to a successful business, making sure you're remaining purposeful with your systems and creating that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the moving from E to P, if you've never seen the graph, there's a graph where it shows when you're entrepreneurial and then you hit a ceiling and then because you're entrepreneurial, you end up hitting the ceiling, you get demoralized, you come back down, and then you go back up. It's a constant roller coaster when you're being entrepreneurial. The only way to break through a ceiling of achievement is by being purposeful. And being purposeful means either implementing new tools, implementing new systems, hiring new leverage. So that's where you get purposeful. And whenever you do start to operate like that, that's when you can break through that ceiling. So if you've been in the business for a while and every year you're doing the same thing, then it could be that you just need to get purposeful about figuring out whether you need systems, tools, or leverage to actually break through that ceiling that you're hitting.
Does anybody have questions so far? If you do, feel free to kind of put in the chat. I'm looking at my computer on the side over here. So if you have any questions and you want to stop us, please feel free, because we're going to just be zooming through this. Okay, now we're going now towards being learning based. George can begin and I'll piggyback off of what he has to say.
So being learning based, this goes back to like committing to self-mastery. If you're going to be an agent and you want to be a realtor, you want to be a great realtor, then you have to be learning based, and you cannot ever think that you know it all. And it's easy when you're in the business for a long time that you can start to feel like, I know what I'm doing, and you're just moving day in and day out and you're just going through the motions, and it can feel like you know everything, but real estate is constantly evolving, constantly changing. So you have to make sure you're constantly being learning based. That doesn't necessarily mean attending all the classes. You know, when you're new, you should obviously be attending all the classes that we have, but when you get more experience and more seasoned, this means following economic data, you know, keeping up with local market trends, local economic policies. Like, you have to pretty much continue to learn what's going on in the industry and in the economy so that you can continue to be that local economist of choice, right? So being learning based just means you have to constantly be seeking more and more knowledge to make yourself a better agent, right?
Yeah, and definitely, as George mentioned, you don't know it all. I mean, we've had peers when we started were our mentors, and they'll tell you to this day, 25, 30 years in the business, they still are learning something on a day-to-day. We're even experiencing that now half of the years. So it's very interesting. As Kendrick Lamar says, be humble. Okay, I had to throw the zinger in there real quick. Okay, so definitely you have to make sure that you are being humble, because you don't know it all, and you have to know that even as you're talking to newer agents, you can be in this group here. I'm in this ALC chat through WhatsApp and the KW office chat. Man, there's a lot of conversations going in there. It's like, this is really enlightening. You really don't know a lot. You think you do. So no matter what, make sure you're conscious of that. And of course, as George mentioned, you can't learn it all. You're not going to be a professional student and not actually implement it, right? Which goes back to the idea of time blocking. If you're going to take classes, don't let it be the entire day of classes, because you still got to get to work, right? So if you want to commit 1 hour of day to something education about real estate, go ahead and do it. If you have additional time later, you go ahead and do the same. There's so many facets of this business to learn.
But like, for being learning based, some of the things you can do is always read some kind of real estate book. So every year and constantly on an ongoing basis, you should always be reading some type of real estate investment or real estate sales book, just to constantly be getting it reiterated. You know, you can't read it enough because you're trying to master this thing, right? So you have to constantly be engulfing yourself in it. Whenever the Nice R magazine comes out, make sure you read the Nice R magazine. There's always good stuff in there. Whenever the NAR magazine, the Realtor magazine, comes out, read your Realtor magazine, right? Sign up for the Real Deal Daily Dirt so you know what's going on in New York City. You know, sign up for the all the Queens newsletters, or like the Queens, the Queensboro President newsletter, so you know what's going on in Queens. If you're in another borough, you want to constantly be learning what's happening in the market, what's happening in the industry, so that you can stay on top of your game, right? So being learning based just means never get comfortable. Don't ever get comfortable and feel like you know it all, because that's the day that you'll start going down, you know? So always stay in a constant evolution phase, you know, always learning more and trying to soak in as much knowledge as you can. And my suggestion would be reading. I don't know how many people don't read books, but you have to be reading books constantly reading good books. In my opinion, no matter what YouTube videos or what videos or podcasts you hear or watch, there's nothing like reading a really good book and the information you can get from there. So constantly be reading a new book so you can keep expanding your mind.
Now, moving on to removing limiting beliefs. This is so important here, right? Now, when you're starting in the business, we already know how overwhelming it is. Even when you're a seasoned agent, it's also overwhelming. But don't believe that you can't do these things. You just have to start somewhere and plan things out. Once you can do that, you can accomplish a whole lot. I speak to a lot of new agents that are considering joining Keller Williams or even getting their license. And many times they're like, where do I go? What do I do? Who do I talk to? You have to just start somewhere. Take a moment, sit down, and come up with a plan. I've already mentioned this earlier regarding the 411. But in terms of like your psyche, you have to know if you're going to do this and you're going to be in this business, there is no room for limiting beliefs. You have to know that you can do it. Many times I've also heard in the very beginning, this is New York, this is Queens, it can't be done. I'm sorry, but that is absolutely not true. I'm not originally from New York, and nor is George. And guess what? Thank you, Jesus. We were able to have all of these successes, but through our efforts and also surrounding ourselves with good people that are really about all that growth as well. And we also have accountability to each other. We're each other's dream buddies. It's very important to get dream buddies so that way they can lift you up. If you have negative Nellies around you that say you can't do it, just talk to somebody else, because there's 10 more people that will support you versus bringing you down.
Yeah. So, I mean, removing limiting beliefs, I think this comes down, there's some people that are just naturally believe in themselves and they really have no doubt that they can do anything they put their mind to. And there's other people that do have those little seeds of doubt. But if you really want to be successful in real estate, even in life, I mean, anything you want to do, you just have to realize that it can be done. And all it takes is, being purposeful and committing to it, right? Devoting yourself to it, but you definitely should not be limiting your beliefs. So you shouldn't be thinking that something is not possible. It's more so, how can it be possible, right? There's always a way. And so you just don't want to be limiting what you think is possible for yourself. And we tell our team this all the time. You have to be thinking big, just like Gary Keller says, think big, aim high. In my opinion, 500 houses a year. Yes, that's a good goal. And even though it might sound outrageous, but you have to think like, yes, it's possible. It's just a matter of, how is it possible? How do I get it done? So if your goal is to gross 100,000 this year, it should be to gross 200,000. Push the envelope so that you can stretch yourself and push your skills. It'll make you get creative and figure out what you actually need to do to accomplish it. But definitely don't limit yourself. And I've learned this, Abby, too, over the years. When you meet some of the most successful people and some of the most successful agents in the business, when you have a conversation with them, the biggest thing that you'll take from it is that they're just like all of us. So intellect does not equal success. I know a lot of smart people with a lot of degrees that are not that successful, right? Especially like, there's agents that are highly educated, but not as successful, because what equals success is actually being willing to do the work that it takes to get it done, right? So, and it's the mindset of just not having any doubt that you can do it and that it can be done. So definitely don't have any limiting beliefs, or that will hinder you big time.
And if you struggle with these kinds of things, I mean, I haven't always been in my lifetime the most believe so much in myself, but having my husband here, as well as my team, as well as, as I've gotten older, realizing that who you surround yourself is very important. You got to make sure that you have positive people around you, and maybe your way of converting into positive will also help them. So that's also a key factor in implementing that way of thinking. And reading on a day-to-day positive, books that are all about mindset, or actually even playing YouTube in the morning when you wake up, when you're getting ready, maybe putting your makeup on, play some inspirational videos about those people that are all about go get it, if that's what you want, right? So there's all things are possible.
Yeah.
Now, last but not least.
The last one, so I think Lourdes had asked in there, number 5, it was remove your limiting beliefs. Number 6 is be accountable. And this can be either through a coach, or it can be just through reporting. With the 411, the good thing about it is that you should have to submit it to someone. So you have to report. And true accountability would be something like a coach or something like that. But if you can't afford a coach, you could even go with your best friend. You can have your partner, your spouse, and you can use them as an accountability partner. The way we do our accountability on our team, it's not like somebody is there, you know, laying down the hammer on somebody that didn't achieve their activities. It's just, what did you get done this week? What did you not get done this week? What were your challenges? Why weren't you able to accomplish what you didn't accomplish? And what's the plan for next week? So it's merely reporting, but that simple act of reporting your activities on a week-to-week basis, that alone leads to better results, because you're looking at it, you're reflecting, you're reviewing, you're analyzing your results, and then you're coming up with a new game plan for the next week. So being accountable, in my opinion, doesn't have to be a scary thing. You know, a lot of people don't like accountability. I don't think it has to be such a scary thing. It's just a matter of picking an accountability partner, whether it's your partner, family, friend, or someone else in the office, and then report to each other. What are the goals this week? You know, what am I planning on doing? And then review with each other. So what didn't I get done? Why didn't I get them done? What were my challenges? And what's the plan this coming week? That alone will help you be more purposeful and help you achieve more of the goal that you're trying to achieve.
Now, depending on your personality style, if you don't know the disc yet, and the personality traits, look into that. But if you're a high D and you need that tough love, then you have to find somebody that's going to give you that tough love.
Yes,
so really look for someone that makes sense with your style, that will give you that extra little push with your way of accepting it.
For sure.
That's
so these are the 6. I mean, does anybody have questions about anything that we mentioned, or any of the 6 personal perspectives?
Rosa, tell us something good, because I know you're doing well. I would love to hear from you.
I was actually, I took so much notes right now that I'm like, all right, I need to get a developer on my Facebook Live because of you guys.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. And I love talking to you, Abigail. You've been a great inspiration, both of you guys, to me, for sure. And I really care about you guys both equally. And I did take one of the class that I didn't make it on time, but I watched on Facebook, which you were going over the economic data. How important is that for you guys when you actually go on a listing presentation and providing that information? Because I think that alone is like mind-blowing for a lot of people, especially the unemployment rate and all that.
Yeah, so you do want to be, this is part of like that whole committing to self-mastery, but I'm constantly watching CNBC, reading Financial Times, financial articles, following the markets, following the treasury yields. You know, I'm always looking at economic data, and not only macro, but also here locally in New York City. You want to know what's the employment rate in New York City, because that can impact our local real estate market, right? So yeah, you're a realtor, and a lot of times when we meet with sellers, they do have questions like that. They ask us, you know, what's happening with the rates? What do you see in the economy? You know, what do you envision, or what do you think is going to be happening? And if you are keeping yourself informed on all of the economic data that's coming out, then you will be able to give some better advice, right? So if you start seeing that the unemployment rate for 4 straight months has been going down, and then you know that it's trending in the right direction, right? But if the unemployment rate for the last 4 months was going up, then you know it's not trending in the right direction. So it's good to just follow these things on a constant basis, and you should be able to have high-level economic conversations with clientele, because that just also shows your expertise. And this also goes, like, you can listen to a lot of podcasts too to follow these things. But I think as an agent, especially the more experienced you get, you want to become an economist. So you need to know the numbers that drive the real estate market, have your own quarterly real estate market report that you create, because that'll make you dive into the numbers. So you have to go and dive into the sales, the inventory, the interest rates, any of the economic, local and macroeconomic data. You should be doing that yourself so that you can be really in tune with it. And when you have these conversations with people, they obviously, you sound like an expert, because nobody else is doing that. No consumer is going to be going that deep into the data, right?
Absolutely. The class that you taught, and I actually now use that report all the time, the one where you show how many houses are selling, what's the average price, that for my business have dramatically impacted. So if anyone has not watched that, they have to watch it because it was very useful for me, for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, because you
awesome.
can't skew numbers, right? It's all factual. So in the end, even by the time you're finished going through that data, I mean, it's amazing because there's no question to ask, because how can you ask a question when everything is out there for you? So we never have any, it's very rare that we have people going against what we're suggesting of pricing, because after you review all that data, I mean, it's clear in your face, you know, and even by the time you go through all that information as well, an owner is so like impressed, not to say you're there to impress them, because it's totally not our style. We're just here to educate you. And the more that you can educate and enlighten an owner, they're more willing to want to work with you, because wow, you just gave me all this information that maybe 5 other realtors did not, right? So it's all about educating who you're meeting with, whether buyer or seller.
Yeah, for sure. Does anyone have any?
Thank you, Rosa.
Thanks, Rosa.
Do you have anything else to ask?
I mean, I have tons of questions.
Please go ahead. Is it,
Yeah,
you know,
feel
if anybody can jump in, but please go ahead. We can educate the group here.
For sure.
I do have questions for you when it comes, because with the checklist and systems, right? I have the checklist, I'll create them. And then for whatever reason, I get off track with them. So is there like, I'm trying to figure out what would be the best way. Would it be just take that 1 hour where it's like, all right, you have all these leads that you spoke with today, just take that whole entire hour to plug them in? Or how can I, because sometimes you get busy, like you said, you get things thrown everywhere. Like what would be the best way to really follow your checklist?
Well, you're talking about for leads, specifically for leads. Well, you just have to time block. So if you have 2 hours, let's say it's just too busy, because let's say you're killing it right now, which I hear you are. Let's say because there's just absolutely no time and you're still working to leverage by gaining, getting another new team member, but you can't right now. So you might want to limit, let's say 2 hours of lead generating, because realistically, there's no other way of doing it. And the other hour is for implementing into your database. That is what you can do.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
And also that's where the 411 comes into play, right? So if one of your weekly activities is to complete your checklist for all your new leads from the previous week, then that has to get done that week. Otherwise, you're going to have to report it on the next Monday. You have to tell whoever your accountability partner is, I wasn't able to get that done. Why wasn't I able to get it done this week? I'm going to do it on Wednesday at 2 p.m. And you time block it and you set it in your calendar, right? So it really comes down to the time blocking, and then the 411 can become the deadline. So this week I have to do this, right? And then if it keeps carrying over, then you have to have that conversation about how important is this? Is it really important or is it not? And if it is important, then you got to just block it out and get it done.
And as you know, leads are time sensitive. I just had this conversation with my buddy Daniel on our team. And, he's like, how do you do this? Like time block? Like the idea is that if you have business already in front of your face that you've spoken to someone today, don't wait 3 days to all of a sudden get back to them, because time is important to people, right? So if you already have the leads in front of you, you've kind of converted it right there. It is a priority that you make sure that you use your systems and implement them, make sure they get your email, text, whatever the case, because that time of 24 hours, they can forget about you just like that. And your follow-up is not going to be as impressive as if you were to do it, let's say the next day, if you had to time block. So let's say, it's hard to say when you're so used to lead generating for a certain amount of hours a day, but when you get busy, which is a great thing, you also have to realize that when there's business in front of you that are ready, you have to time block, because that's still part of lead generating.
And it goes back to that 80-20 rule, because if you have 20 leads and 2 are sellers and 18 are buyers, I mean, for me, my 20% is sellers, and those 18 just have to go to the wayside until I can get to it, because my top priority is those 2 sellers, right? So the 80-20 rule is coming into play constantly. So if you have your checklist, you have your leads, you might need to pick the top 20% of the leads, get those done first, and then you get to the other ones, right? Yeah. So, but the way that we are with checklists, or the way I am, I always, if I have my checklist, it will never get put away until I finish it. So even if I get to it later, it always gets done. So no lead should fall through the cracks. As long as you always get to it, it's good. But you might just have to either with the 411 or prioritizing the top 20% of the leads if you don't have that much time.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I got an idea
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do with that. And then with regards, because now what I'm starting to do, because I spoke with you, Abigail, you had mentioned, hey, I do tons of email. So with email specifically, I'm plugging, just because I have a lot of people. Just give me 1 second.
We
I
can
live
hear.
near the train, so the train is
It's
my
all
back.
good.
We can hear you. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all good.
So because I do have a lot of buyers, a lot of sellers, I'm combining them together and just doing like a blast email to everyone through MailChimp. Is that something smart to do, or do you recommend me to start separating them?
So I believe in target marketing. I don't really like blanket marketing. I believe in like segmenting your consumer profiles into groups and then delivering targeted messages that fit those specific groups. So like if we have buyers, we have a group for single family buyers, a group for multifamily buyers, a group for co-ops, condos. When it's homeowners, we have them broken down by neighborhood, by property type. So I that's just me. You know, I believe in like targeted messaging where you get very low unsubscribe rates because the content is actually relevant to them, right? So if you have a buyer group and then you send a touch that's has to do with buying, they're more likely to enjoy the content and less likely to unsubscribe, right? Because it's delivered like specifically for them. So that would be my recommendation, is to break it down, segment your groups, and then deliver like targeted messaging
And
to the groups.
it works. It works a
Yeah,
lot.
we have really low unsubscribe rates, and we get a ton of responses whenever we send stuff because it's only geared towards exactly whatever that profile is, right?
No one likes spam. If you're doing blanket marketing, it's looking like you're just spamming your database, and it's not good content to that person that needs it specific.
I mean, it could not to say it's spam, but like let's say you did a real estate market report. That can go to everybody.
Yeah.
But if you're doing, let's say you just sold a co-op, you know, for us, we don't send just sold. If we sold a co-op, we're not sending it to residential homeowners. We're sending it to our co-op and condo owners. They own apartments, right? So we're saying, check out this apartment we just sold. And if we sell a house, we're sending it to our residential homeowners so they can see that we just sold a house in their neighborhood, right? So it's kind of that messaging where you're thinking about what would they actually care about. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense.
This is a good jewel for the group in here too, by the way, if you're not doing this.
Yeah, lately this year, and everybody else could do this too. So this year we started doing a 12 direct email campaign where we do a monthly touch to all of the homeowners in our database. So we just do Queens, me and Abby. So it's a group that's Queens homeowners. And so it's a touch every single month that we're sending that's catered specifically to Queens homeowners, right? So this doesn't, if you don't own a house, then this won't relate to you, right? If you own a house, then you might like this because the touch might be our favorite painter. And we give contact info and we give a story of how we met the painter that we like to use, what their contact information is, how the work is that they do. And so it's something that if you're a homeowner, you might actually need that one day and you might take that number down, right? So we've been doing a homeowner campaign once a month, a touch. And then we have a new campaign that's once a month just to home buyers, Queens home buyers. So this is like high quality, hyper local information. So we're sending out information for Queens home buyers related to buying in Queens and what is happening in the local market. So nothing is automated, but we think that that's the way. Like for last month, the touch that we did for our Queens homebuyer group was how to verify the CO on a property. And that's something that if you're buying a house in Queens, you need to know that, you should know how to actually do that and the ins and outs. So that's kind of an idea of where we're taking it with our like targeted messaging.
And by the way, like we said earlier with the whole 6-person perspective, this is planned out. So for example, at the end of the year, we meet with our team and we talk about what will be our 33 touch campaign for our past clients in our database. So we plan it out for the whole year because when you get busy on a day-to-day, you don't have time to think about use your creative brain. What should we send out this month?
Yeah.
That gets annoying. So you have to make sure that those things are planned out and then You create it and it's sent out, and then you already know what your next topic is.
Yep.
You're saying don't sit every month. Well, obviously for me now that I'm I could take an hour and start building it up. I'm not going to do it overnight.
Right.
So what you're saying is plan it out, let's say in December, and then plan it all out, or do you plan it by month, or do you just say plan it all out throughout the whole year?
So we try to plan it out for the whole year.
But it's not, but they're not created. The touches aren't created. So like we have, we have all the touches listed, but it's on my 411 to send out all the monthly touches. And so week 1 might be prepare the bullet points of what I'm going to cover. Week 2 will be create the email, create all the content. And then week 3 would be to send it. So every week you're like working on it, but it's very time sensitive. So whatever's happening this month that's related to buyers or related to homeowners, then we'll throw something in there like that. So it's not created, but we have the general idea.
The topics.
Yeah, in the beginning of the year, we have it all outlined.
Does that make sense?
That makes so much sense. This is like great, so much information. I really appreciate it. And I'm gonna lay back now because I asked a lot and this is everything I needed. So
no, this is great. Actually, really good questions, because at least the group here can kind of hear some different ideas.
Yeah.
And this all works, guys.
Yeah.
If you didn't know this, do it now.
Any other questions, feel free to ask them or throw them in the chat.
Yeah, but the main idea here is the 6 personal perspectives. I mean, this is so key here, and it's so much easier said than done. And it goes back to being purposeful about if you like how you want to succeed in life and in your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, using these activities and being conscious of it and using the 411 is so key here. If y'all have any questions, you can always reach out to us. Our group emails info@queenshometeam.com.
Mm-hmm.
And any questions, anytime you're in you come across something, reach out either to the group that Keller Williams has available on WhatsApp. There's an ALC group, there's a Keller Williams group. And of course, y'all have easy access to get to our team if you need to.
Yeah.
All right.
And for the 6 personal perspectives, if you aren't following this, then print it and hang it up somewhere near your computer.
Yeah.
Oh, what camera do we use? This is our phone right here. But for camera, we use just our phones, Kate. Yeah, we've been using the iPhone 11. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for the 6 personal perspectives, I would say to print that by your computer. You should be able to recite this to anybody, because in my opinion, business or personal, you got to be learning based. You have to be accountable. You have to commit to the 80-20 principle, commit to self-mastery, be learning based, move from E to P. These are things that you can apply to any aspect of your life. And so you just want to internalize these things and make them part of you.
But before we go, I'm not sure if you guys aren't here, but Vinnie Thompson, as well as Angela, if you guys are in here, if you just want to add one thing to the group to just add to this topic of conversation, if you're listening, please feel free to say something while we're in this group chat, because y'all are all seasoned too. Anybody? Yes. Thank you, Vinny.
What Queen's home team said. Yeah. No, I think the idea of the system, I think is great, guys. When I got more systematic with my team and really taking time to break things down and getting okay with the boredom of it, my business picked up a lot, right?
The boredom.
That's correct. Yeah, 100%, man. And
just falling in love with the activities. The outcomes are the outcomes. Just do the work. You know what I mean?
That's it. And I think it's hard for some agents, because agents do get bored, and you don't get into real estate to be in like a 9 to 5 where you're doing the same thing every day. But the truth is that the results come from constant activities every single week, every single month, same activities, and then the results follow that. But that's awesome, man. That's
cool. A good one.
Yeah, that's
because
a good one.
It just got brought up yesterday, how monotonous what we do can be, because you're doing the same thing every day that leads to results.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vinny.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, and Marjorie. Thank you. Angela, she said, sorry, she can't talk right now, Angela, but thank you. She did say, sent to the group, fear is overcome by action. Amen.
Sure. And also a good one, part of this commit to self-mastery. I know we probably have a lot of high S's. We probably have high C's in the group. Knowledge is power. And with knowledge, the more you learn, the more you engulf yourself in real estate, even if you feel timid, or even if you're naturally timid, if you learn so much about real estate and about the business here in New York, that will give you the confidence you need. So if you're a timid person or you're a little more mild-mannered and calm, then you want to engulf yourself and commit to mastering real estate even more, because the more you learn, the more you get experience, the more confident you'll sound when you speak to people. So that's something key that I tell anybody, if they're a high S or not naturally a high D or something, then you want to learn as much as you can so that you can start to sound more like a high D or a high I, because that knowledge will give you that confidence.
Yeah, good way to
Yeah.
end that. Does
Cool.
anybody have any questions? We're about to
Hi
close it
guys,
off.
how are you? It is Luz. Very good
Luz.
class. I always, you motivate to all of us. Guys, I have questions. Since you focus obviously more listings, if some buyer come and call you, let's say they call you, George, they say, hi, George, I want to buy a house. I want to buy here in Queens. Here I have 450,000. I want to buy two family house and I want to put 5% down payment. I just have 20,000 for down payment. What you can do, you main focus listings, the house averaging here in Queens 500, 600, 1 million, 1,200,000. He doesn't even have for the minimum one family house. How you can handle it? That to say, you cannot say, you know, I don't want to work with you, but you know, if you want to focus on them, probably want to be wasting your time. So how will you manage that?
So usually, I mean, like for both Abby and myself, if we do speak to a buyer, we'll have that initial conversation, but we always direct them to one of our buyer agents to have that, to go more in depth. We get some basic information. If they tell us that over the phone, like for me and Abby, where it sounds unrealistic, then we will usually tell them, you know, that's not really realistic for the area. You might want to speak to a lender first, find out what you can get approved for, and then we can put you in touch with one of our buyer agents for a consultation if it's realistic. But usually I think it's our buyer agents that would tell them, you know, that's not realistic. But if they're open to exploring other areas or other property types, there might be something we can do to help. So you might want a 2-family for 500, and that's not possible. But if you can get approved for a 1-family for 450, maybe we can do something, right? So we just get creative. We try to help people, but that's why a lot of times, you know, you have to have your communication systems really good, because when you speak to a buyer like that, it doesn't mean they're not going to buy. They're just not ready to buy right now. But if you put them in your system and you make a good first impression, 3 years from now, when they're ready to buy that house, they'll call you. But if you don't have good systems in place to communicate with them, then there's no way you're going to get that business, right? So we try to just always give good advice. We direct them a lot of times to the lenders to get pre-approved first. And then we tell them, once you get pre-approved, give us a call, and then we'll connect you with one of our buyer agents. And that way our buyer agents can give them a full consultation, and then they take it from there.
Yeah, and
right?
When I used to work with buyers, like, because I know you're not working with any team, Luz, back in the day when I was working with buyers, it's really having a sit down and going over, as George mentioned. And if they want something specific, however, whatever their financial picture doesn't allow them to get that, you just have to be honest with them. I mean, that's the key here. And you can let them know, this is what you need. This is what you can do to prepare towards buying this if it just doesn't work out at that moment. Yeah. And then you add them to your database, you add them to the drips, etc. And eventually, guess what? They're going to come back to you because number one, you're honest, you're upfront, you educated them well, and you stayed in touch.
But just treat it like educational. You should be educating people. We have a bunch of our friends that they just rent and they ask about buying a house and they might have 15,000, and we'll have that conversation. You have people don't get this kind of guidance, right? They don't get this advice. So they don't know what they don't know. And so it's your job to educate them and tell them, teach them about seller concessions, what the average price points are, how much they need to save, what a credit score would be, what credit score would be good for them to get approved for a loan. So you should know all these kind of things so you can give people really good advice, and then just keep in touch with them because many times they might not be ready yet.
George, I'm about to hire him right now. He sounds so knowledgeable.
She hired me already.
Yeah. Thank you so much. You know, it's incredible. A lot of people, they don't know nothing about buying a house. Another couple called me too, and they say, you know, I went to see a house, 700,000 Brooklyn. This agent already took us there. We have an income that we can be pre-approved for 450, but they say for the rest, because the houses are around 800, the rest of the income, they can be done with a tax, with a counter guy, and they want to charge us $12,000 to give us like a fake income to put together and be affordable to buy the 800,000 house. I said that is illegal. Who is
Yeah, that sounds
doing
terrible.
that? How
No.
they can? And the people believe it. They were ready to give to the accounting guy 12,000 to make a fake documents. I cannot believe things
Well,
like
this
that.
is
I mean,
where
that's where, yeah,
they're lucky that they met you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the reality is we're living in a world where there's a lot of type of schemes that go on, but there's a lot of greatness in this world too.
Mhm.
And when they come across an agent like you and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe what you just got, what they explained to you, but that's not correct. This is actually what's correct.
Mhm.
And they'll be more appreciative that, wow, they actually spoke to a professional. So
Yes, yeah.
God bless. There you go.
Yeah, just keep
Hey,
helping.
one more thing, the last one. Can you share with us the 41 template, something like that, please? If you
Yes,
don't-
of
Yes,
course.
we can share that with everybody.
What I'll do, guys, I'm gonna put our email in the group chat, and then if you want it, if you can just kindly email us to request it, and we'll make sure to email it to you, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luz.
Awesome, Luz. Thank you.
Christina, anything you want to add here?
No, thank you guys both so much for dropping some knowledge and honesty too today. We really appreciate you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for participating,
Good
everyone.
luck, everybody. Read a book.
Hi, Susie.
Thank you guys.
Hey, Susie.
Have a good day,
Cool.
y'all. Thanks for
Later, guys.
participating. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
Goodbye.